In November 1965, a demonstration march was planned in Berkeley in support of peace in Vietnam and to protest the draft. Allen Ginsberg was to be an active participant. The Hells Angels vowed to beat up demonstrators if such a parade were held, and so a committee met to prepare for the threatened violence. These were Ginsberg's suggestions to that committee. Photo: Julian Beck, Phil Ochs, Peter Orlovsky, Wavy Gravy, Hugh Romney, Judith Malina, Stephen Ben Israel, Allen Ginsberg, pre-election rally Central Park. Fall 1972. Photo snapped with Allen's camera, courtesy Stanford University Library's Allen Ginsberg Estate. How to make a march spectacle. If imaginative, pragmatic, fun, gay, happy, secure. Propaganda is issued to mass media in advance, and pragmatic leaflets handed out days in advance, giving marchers instructions. The parade can be made into an exemplary spectacle on how to handle situations of anxiety and fear-wash and threat, such as specter of Hell's Angels or specter of communism, to manifest by concrete example, namely the parade itself, how to change war psychology and surpass, go over, the habit-image reaction of fear-violence. That is, the parade can embody an example of peaceable health, which is the reverse of fighting back blindly. Announce in advance it is a safe march. Bring your grandmother and babies. Bring your family and friends. Open declarations. We aren't coming out to fight, and we simply will not fight. We have to use our imagination. A spectacle can be made, an unmistakable statement, outside the war psychology which is leading nowhere. Such statement would be heard around the world with relief. The following suggestions manifest or embody what I believe to be the conscious psychology of latent understanding of the majority of the youth and many elders who come out to march. And once clearly enunciated by the leaders of the march will be clearly understood and acted upon by them. Necessary to trust the communal sanity of the marchers who already demonstrated that community when they first sat down. Needed, an example of health which will paralyze the angels and also manifest itself through mass media reportage. NB, a negative psychology of becoming scared by threats, adrenaline running in neck, uprush of blood to head, blind resentment, self-righteousness, fear, anger, and active return of violence is exactly what the Hells Angels, power structure, press, and fuzz thrive on what the young people who come march don't want and are dragged by what will decrease the number who come and discourage the great many on the fence who would come to a good scene. The following are specific suggestions for organizing march and turning marchers onto their roles in the demonstration. 1. Masses of flowers, a visual spectacle, especially concentrated in the front lines, can be used to set up barricades to present to Hells Angels, police, politicians, and press and spectators whenever needed, or at parade's end. Masses of marchers can be asked to bring their own flowers. Front lines should be organized and provided with flowers in advance. 2. Front lines should be the psychologically less vulnerable groups. The Women for Peace or any other respectable organization, perhaps a line of poets and artists, mothers, families, professors. This should also be announced, publicized in advance. 3. Marchers should bring crosses to be held up in front in case of violence, like in the movies dealing with Dracula. This for those who use crosses or Jewish stars. 4. Marchers who use American flags should bring those. At least one front row of American flags in myriad in the spectacle. 5. Marchers should bring harmonicas, flutes, recorders, guitars, banjos, and violins. Those who don't use crosses or flags. Bongos and tambourines. 6. Marchers should bring certain children's toys, not firecrackers or balloons, which cause noise hysteria, which can be used for distracting attackers, such as sparklers, toy rubber swords, especially the little whirling carbon wheels which make red, white, blue sparkles, toy soldiers. 7. In case of heavy anxiety, confusion, or struggle in isolated spots, marchers could be led in sit-down mass calisthenics. 8. In case of threat of attack, marchers could intone en masse the following mantras: the Lord's Prayer, 3 blind mice, sung, aum, long breath in unison, Star-Spangled Banner, Mary had a little lamb, spoken in unison, 9. More interesting Zen sheen spectacle signs, as in Oakland. So in Vietnam, everybody's made of meat. Nobody wants to get hurt. Us or them, everybody's wrong. Including U.S. Hells Angels. Viet Cong Birch Society, don't flip, we love you too. 10. Candy bars carried by marchers to offer Hells Angels and police. 11. Marchers encouraged to carry copies of the Constitution if they have them or can buy them. 12. Little paper halos to offer angels, police, and spectators and patriots. 13. A row of marchers with white flags and many white flags in mass. 14. Those who have movie cameras bring them and take pictures of spectacle or any action. To combine for documentary film, which could be used in court in case of legal hassles later, and also to circulate for propaganda and profits. Monitors who can should have cameras. Other more grandiose possibilities. 15. Corps of student newsmen to interview newsmen, propagandize and soften and charm TV crews, etc. 16. Small floats or replicas in front. Christ with Sacred Heart and Cross, invite church groups to prepare. Buddha in meditation, invite Zen people to come march and meditate on floats. George Washington, Lincoln, Whitman, etc. Float or living masquerade. Thoreau behind bars, float Hell's Angels. Float with halos, happy, praying, no ugly provocative caricature. Birch Society float, old ladies in tennis sneakers. Dixieland band float dressed as Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, Napoleon, and Caesar. 17. At first sign of disturbance, public address systems swing into vast sound to loud Beatles, I want to hold your hand, and marchers instructed to dance, if not doing calisthenics or Lord's Prayer. 18. The mime troupe in costume block down the march, walking and doing pantomime. 19. Soundtracks with Bay Area rock and roll bands every 2 blocks, Jefferson Airplane, The Charlatans, etc. These bands have their own sound systems. Family dog people might be able to arrange this. This scheme to pick up on the universal youth rock roll protest of Dylan, Universal Soldier, etc., and concretize all that consciousness in the parade. 20. Front or toward front, toy army in costume, Civil War or Revolutionary War or WWY uniforms and signs. No more leave me alone. Addenda, pre-march propaganda. 1. Muslims, unions, etc., all invited to join inside the masses. 2. Leaflets with above instructions to marchers how to channel their anxiety and respond to attack. 3. Daily delegations to Hell's Angels to talk to them, pestering them in advance. 4. Petitions and letters and news releases to papers, setting tone of march. Petitions to Governors Brown, open letter to Hell's Angels, 1 news release, we're not going to fight. Open letters to young Republicans, Democrats, Birchers, Army, Johnson, etc. All the propaganda suggested at Tuesday meeting. Conferences with Oakland police to force them to keep peace. 5. Emphasize in propaganda. Trust the marchers to be hip, calm, and tranquil with a sense of humor and not get sidetracked into frustration, personal violence. 6. Perhaps as propaganda, an imaginary ladies' corps to pull down Hell's Angels' pants in case of attack, or a theoretical corps of trained fairies to seduce them in mid-battle. This is a sort of press release joke to lighten the atmosphere. Written Syria, November 1965. First published, Berkeley Barb, November 19, 1965, pp. 1-4, and reprinted in Liberation, Volume 10, Number 10, January 1966, and The New Left, edited by Massimo Teodori. Indianapolis, Bobbs Merrill, 1970. He paused reference to Henry David Thoreau, who was imprisoned overnight in his native Concord, for refusing to pay his state poll taxes, which would have supported the Mexican War. This prompted him to write his famous essay on civil disobedience. Universal Soldier, song by Donovan, and popular at the time, 1965. San Francisco Mime Troupe, avant-garde theater group in the Bay Area. Eve of Destruction, popular song by Barry McGuire, songwriter and star of Hair Photo, Julian Beck, Phil Ochs, Peter Orlovsky, Wavy Gravy, Judith Malina, Stephen Ben Israel, Unknown Man in Hat, Allen Ginsberg, Fall 1972 anti-war demonstration, Central Park. Photo snapped by John Giorno with Ginsberg's camera. In the 1972 Central Park anti-war demonstration photo, snapped by John Giorno with Allen Ginsberg's camera, the identified individuals and their roles at the time were Julian Beck, co-founder and artistic director of the Living Theater, a radical avant-garde theater company known for its politically charged performances and anti-war activism. Phil Ochs, influential American protest, singer-songwriter renowned for his sharp, topical songs opposing the Vietnam War and social injustice. Peter Orlovsky, poet and partner of Allen Ginsberg, a figure within the Beat generation and counterculture known for his poetry and activism. Wavy Gravy, Hugh Romney, counterculture icon and peace activist, known for his role as a clown and organizer at events like Woodstock, involved with anti-war and social justice causes. Judith Malina, co-founder of the Living Theater with Julian Beck, actress and activist, deeply involved in avant-garde theater and political protest. Stephen Ben Israel, activist and figure associated with anti-war movements and leftist political causes during that period. Allen Ginsberg, leading Beat poet and activist, vocal opponent of the Vietnam War, and key figure in the 1960s-70s countercultural and anti-war movements. The unknown man in the hat remains unidentified in historical records. Each of these individuals was actively involved in anti-war activism and cultural resistance against the Vietnam War in 1972, contributing through art, music, theater, poetry, and direct protest.